Let's go to this now. Stats SA has released its Victims of Crime report today. The report looks at including incidents of housebreaking, theft of personal property, assault, vehicle hijacking and home robbery, among others. But what are these numbers telling us about the lived experience of South Africans when it comes to dealing with issues of crime? Let's speak to Stats SA Chief Director, Social Statistics, Molayi, who joins us live now. Soli, thank you so much for your time this evening. Before we even get to this data, how challenging was it to collate, particularly looking at the fact that, we've just come out of the pandemic and some people are still not trusting when it comes to letting people into their homes?
Good evening. Yes, indeed. The period that we are referring to is 2021 to 2022, and it's between April up until March this year. So if you recall, we're still under the lockdown. So collecting or conducting survey during this period was quite a difficult challenge process. And I think one have to applaud the South African for allowing us to collect information around issues around crime and also safety. But it was quite a challenging, and like I said, I really applaud the South African for allowing us time.
When we, look at what has come out, you think as far back as 5 years ago, 2.2 million households experiencing breaking in and robbery in the last 5 years. What does this picture paint for us?
Okay, so in this particular survey, what we do, we normally, measure crime from the household side and also from the individual side. So from the household side, there's different types of crime. Like you've mentioned, the issue around household breaking, home robbery, assault, thefts of motor vehicle, and we measure it from the past 5 years, and also we're looking at it in the past 12 months of the actual period of data collection. So as you've mentioned, we're sitting around 2.2 million households that indicated that actually experienced housebreaking. And housebreaking, by the way, it's when somebody come to your house when you are not around and break into your home. But then when you look at it in terms of the 12 months, we're sitting around 98, more than 900,000 households that indicated that they actually experienced this particular crime. But what also quite interesting is the incident. So the incident is how many times they're breaking into your house. So we have from the survey, we've seen that it's 1.4 million incidents of housebreaking that we've recorded from the survey, and about 59% or 59.2% of those incidents were reported to the police. So the survey gave us a little bit of insight in terms of how South Africans are experiencing different types of crime. But at the same time, which is quite interesting or very important, is that whether they do report this crime to police. So depending on the type of crime which we are referring to here.
And importantly, you touch on another point I was going to touch on, because the SG presenting this report was also talking about the trust in police and community structures, and how this dynamic is also at play here. What did you find when you were speaking to South Africans about reporting? Do they still even find that it's worth reporting a crime, or are they also building up their own structures as we go along?
Yes, so like I said, depending on the type of crime. Let's make an example about the theft of personal property. You may have lost your ID card, or you may have lost your bank account, your bank card. You may not necessarily go to police to report it, but you may decide to go to your bank, your bank to go and report it. So when we go to the household and ask you whether have you actually experienced this type of crime, you will say yes, but you haven't reported to the police. So as I say, depending on the type of crime. But what we also ask South Africans, we ask them whether if there is a crime that is happening, what will they do? And almost 51% indicated that they will call police, which also an indicator to us to say there is still a level of trust among South African. It's a half of South African who still say, I'll pick up a call and call police if I see a crime is happening.
And at the same time, there's also then those that have decided to almost like put their own measures in place here when it comes to really protecting themselves against crime. And one thinks that, you know, they could potentially arm themselves to be able to deal with this, but it's not that, is it?
Yes. So we did ask a South African whether what are they doing to protect themselves. And if you compare the two data point, meaning from the previous data collection to the current one, we've seen a 17.4 percentage point increase in terms of the number of more, meaning we have more individuals now who are saying, well, I'll do something to protect myself. And maybe the question that you may want to ask is that what are those measures? One of the measures that South African mentioned is that they now have altered their walking patterns. So instead of me walking alone, I'll go with my friend or I'll go with my colleague, you know, instead of walking alone. And also they indicated that they will also look at the time. So they will definitely not walk at a certain period, because the same survey also, we have picked up that most South Africans indicated that they feel less safe walking alone during the night. Actually, we're sitting around 36% of South Africans who say that I'm actually feeling safe to walk alone during the night. So it gives you an indication that South Africans are saying they're not feeling safe to walk alone during the night. And most of them, like I said, they've already altered their walking patterns. But in terms of carrying the weapon or any weapon, whether it's a gun or a knife, we are only sitting around 3.8% who indicated that I will actually carry the gun. Majority, they are saying they will protect their house by having, you know, butlers or even install the alarm for protecting their own home.
There is, you know, of course, the patterns of social behavior that are also looked in when it comes to this. As we wrap up then, Soli, you know, what should we be reading into this when it comes to some of these patterns that we are seeing?
If you compare, like, you look at the trend and you look at how, you know, during the COVID-19, especially 2020 period, we see that there was a dip in terms of the type of crimes that we have measured. And surely it's because of there was a restriction in terms of movement. So most of us, we couldn't move around. And immediately when we lift up the regulations, we started to pick up a lot of crimes, meaning they're moving towards, you know, the pre-COVID-19, if I may put it that way. So one could say that it actually mimicking, you know, our behavior as a social behavior, as we know that as human, most of us, we are social, you know, we like to interact. So that is why you find that your personal thefts of personal belongings as a crime, it's actually higher, especially in the younger group, because that's what we've picked up also. We realized that that type of crime actually is more prevalent amongst the youth. So yes, it is a pattern that we're picking up, and like I said, these are some of the things. The other thing before maybe we close that, it also depending on the setting of settlement types. So we find that in the urban areas, your home robbery is more likely to, it's more prevalent in those areas than in the rural areas. And we're also finding that South Africans who are staying or who are residing in the rural areas, they feel much more safer in their areas rather than South Africans who are staying in an urban setting.
What an interesting discussion. Thank you so much, Soli, for your time. I mean, this is, you know, as one looks at the data that has been collated here, and it's quite important, you know, just to comb through the lived experience of South Africans with crime. Thank you so much for your time this evening. That is SABC Chief Director, Social Statistics, Molayi.